morning.
Jeff.
Only items I have today are executive session related, so I request executive session for employment matters.
I make a motion that we go into executive session for employment matters.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Vicki?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes. Second. Roll call, please, Amy.
Vicki?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes, there is. There are 3 personnel actions, and we have the specifics. I don't know if I can recite them all. We have a resignation, and we have a posting of equipment operator 2 position.
You need this, Amy.
Just
Yeah.
everything was passed?
Yes. And she don't
I have an additional one. This one came into the resignation.
If I go out to this one page on the personnel actions, I suppose I could read all of those, but
She's got them.
you've got them all?
Mm-hmm.
Is that all right? Then I will just ask Amy to incorporate these as per what was in the resolution.
Thanks so much
So
for
is
coming.
there, can we add these personnel
Sure.
actions to journal entries toward
Yes.
journal entries? The approved journal,
Yes.
the approved personnel actions that were discussed. Okay, is that all right with you? Okay. All right, well, that goes to
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time.
Thank you.
I'll go over there with Joanne. and
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Had Denise canceled? Is there somebody coming in for her, or?
No.
Okay, so.
Okay.
Okay. Well, since Mr. Ames is here, do we need to talk about this sales tax, or how do we?
So we have a public hearing, so we,
Okay,
and I think that is what,
11:30.
What we can do is get clarification. Did you leave your phone number and?
I left my email address there, my cell phone is on
Okay.
church right now, so
So what we'll do is get clarification. You have a good question, and we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. And then we can get the information and email you or call
okay.
you.
Well, I was wondering if we could get that section printed out.
Yes, we can. Our legal counsel is not coming this morning, so we will contact her and get a clarification
let
from
me
her.
ask about it.
But we do appreciate you bringing that up.
Sure,
because
and then we will get back to you and give you an answer.
We don't want another oops.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Mr. Ames.
Thank you. We have all his contact
Yes,
information.
we have his email too, so we
Good,
can
so
respond.
excellent. Okay, while we are waiting for the judge, we're
Correspondence, sure.
resolution,
Correspondence,
okay?
yeah.
Okay. You want to do the resolution? Is that what you-
Yes, that would be fine.
Motion to approve the Tuesday, September 15th, 2015 bills, ACH payments as presented by the county auditor and reviewed by the Department of Budget and Financial Management.
I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Vicki?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Motion to approve the Tuesday, September 15th, 2015 journal vouchers as presented by the county auditor and reviewed by the Department of Budget and Financial Management.
Second the motion.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Vicki?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Motion to approve the Tuesday, September 15th, 2015 then announced certification as presented by the county auditor.
A second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are skipping 4 until we have
Yes.
clarification.
Motion for the acceptance of cash donation from a private individual, organization, and/or business for the PCSA Foster Children's Christmas donation to the Portage County Child and Family Services.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting this, indicate by saying aye.
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 And we will get a letter out to this person. Thanking them, person
ready.
from Stark County. Okay, discussion items. I see Audrey Kessler has resigned, and Audrey has been just,
She's a trooper, isn't
oh
she?
my gosh,
Yeah.
that's one
She
way to
is.
describe her. I was wondering if we could do some form of recognition,
Oh, I think that would be very appropriate. Maureen.
proclamation or something to
Yes.
present her. She's really been not only non-cog, but anything we've ever asked of Audrey, she's always done.
And she's leaving herself open to maybe serving again in the
Yeah,
future.
which is great.
So Deborah, you're gonna do?
We'll get a special
Right,
letter,
good.
but the
Good.
point is, there's 3 vacancies on that board now,
Yeah.
2 business and 1 able. So we have the ad up on the website, we can run it again in the paper, but you don't get many responses. This
I
is something
know.
you're gonna have to recruit for.
Do you know, I'd like to have us think about the idea of how we use the Record Courier for these. They're legal ads and they're way in the back. No one ever sees them. I'm wondering if we wouldn't be better off using the money to get a little ad, like a regular ad that would be in the body of the paper, that would talk about the positions that are open. That way we might get a better response rather, unless we're required by law to do a legal ad.
No, you are not.
We're not, okay.
I'm gonna get some pricing then, for, you're talking a little box. maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
little
little
display
box.
on it.
And if we could ask the courier if that could be placed in a certain part of the paper each time so people would know where to look.
And would we put all 3 positions in the same little
We
box,
could,
or,
yeah.
that's what
Why
I'm
don't
thinking.
you just start it with the wanted?
That are
No,
allowed.
seriously, wanted, and the Portage County Commissioners are in need of,
Or volunteers wanted.
well,
Yeah.
that would scare 'em
Just
away.
wanted.
Wanted.
I'll get some
Volunteers, scare them away.
Yeah.
But on the body of it, just the commissioners have openings on the side of them.
So there's nothing for us to do now.
But to agree that we'll defer spending the money on the legal ads, which are much more costly, and do a little block ad.
The legal ads are more
I think it's the other way around. They're not too
Yeah.
bad. They're not very expensive, $6, $10, depending on how big it is. They're not bad at all. I think they're
They're
gonna
not
pay
very
more.
effective, that's
Nobody
the
sees them,
problem.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
the legal ad. All right, the human resource job description and advertising. I had a difficult time reading that.
I had a very difficult time
that
reading
was-
that. I really did. And I just have
On
a
the computer.
question, and it's just about something that I've stressed over and over, and, I don't know, and I've always prefaced when I said this, that maybe government is different than private, so if I'm off base here, just tell me, and no one's ever spoke up and told me, but when it's under the supervisory requirements, it says this position serves as a coach mentor for other department head, directors, and managers. But who serves the people under these folks? I mean, I've always looked at an HR person as kind of serving everybody. Is that wrong? I mean,
I don't know what you're
No,
saying.
it's not wrong, but I don't like that part of this job description at all. Because it looks like it's giving this person authority to be a coach to other elected officials, people. I really liked our previous one, but what we should do is go through and cross off or change anything that we don't like with the previous one. This one is brand new, because when I asked for a red line version, she told me it was all red line, the whole thing. And so it's just, Denise wrote it. I don't know, why would Denise write it?
Probably because of all the issues that have come up in HR, I would think. That's maybe
Did
why
she just do it on her own, decide
Oh,
to write
no,
it?
no. If you'll recall, Denise is advising us in the interim period of time here.
Right.
For HR issues, and that's undoubtedly why she.
well, I think with this position, we just need to be very thorough, because in the past, it seems like only certain people would use our human resources. And I think this has been for years, and, we've got certain elected officials that, for some reason or other, don't want to use human
Right.
resources. And so I think if we would get someone in there that's more inclusive and has real people skills and everything, that everyone would start using them. Like I said, I always look at a human resources person as like a bridge. between management and people, and not necessarily taking sides, but
Of course, I think we have had an effective resource director who was open and
well, I disagree
accepting.
with that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
I know, but you already made your statement, so I'm making mine, that I felt that we did have that. Whether or not people will use a human resource director as a confidant or for whatever reason, is really up to the individual, and you can have a saint in that position, and some people will not take advantage of the opportunity to do that. But you're right, I think that we want someone in that position who's open to listening to everyone
Right,
and is neutral, nonpartisan,
right,
doesn't always take one side or the other.
right.
So I think those are really important characteristics.
That will evolve with elected officials once they see the substance of what the person
And,
brings to the
and it'll
position.
take time, obviously.
Well, it will,
but-
because
but it-
there is, I think, an elected official, I think, feels under their purview, this is their office, these are their decisions, and I'm not going to relegate that or delegate it to
Right.
someone else.
Right.
So, again, everything you've said about HR is absolutely the way it should be. But it's going to be, the person in the position is going to have to give credence to that.
Right.
That's how that will evolve. So what is your pleasure on this job description? How would you like to?
Well, like you, Maureen, I had a very difficult
Yeah, it
time
was-
reading this cross out and everything, so I think I'm just gonna go back to the
And,
2015.
a little more
meeting.
time to read it before it's
Yeah.
posted.
And then can we read through the one that you're suggesting? Just read through in case we want to make changes. And I think one change that maybe the two of you wanted is to take out law degree. I mean, you could do that
Right.
because you say or equivalent or related field, which would allow a person that had a law degree with a focus on human resources to apply, or any other related field.
But I think we have to be very careful with that law degree, because I think in the past, we've kind of depended on that person as our attorney, and that we've been cautioned
Oh,
about
I haven't.
that.
I haven't. I
Well-
certainly haven't.
Well, we were cautioned about that with Denise several times.
I would think it should not be a requirement.
No.
No, well,
We
it's
should
not a
exclude-
requirement.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But, if we want to choose someone that has a law degree with an emphasis on HR, then I'm sure that we
Right.
will do that. But you're right, I think we do not, it's not under the purview of the HR director to give the commissioners legal advice. Okay, so why don't we take a little time and bring this back then?
Okay.
With our changes so that we can hopefully come up with
And
a,
I'm just gonna ignore that one with all the crossing out, because
Yeah.
I got lost there.
okay. The chief building inspector position, there were two people, I think Kathleen, your email said you would
I
like.
did. There were possibly three, and I
Pardon me.
thought, reading through all of them, two of them I thought should be interviewed.
Well, I think we need to set that up then.
I would think, yeah, as soon as you could get them set up would be good.
And who do you want in there, just the commissioners, the three of you?
Hmm.
Just the commissioners, you don't want HR to sit in? or-
Maybe should Randy, no, Randy's already interviewed them, right?
Right.
Randy interviewed them with Carrie.
I
Yeah,
suppose HR
yeah, that'd be fine.
could sit in. And the next is the creation of the Portage County Sales and Use Tax Oversight Committee, which we had come up with what we wanted. In reading Mr. Crawford's email to us, it'd be my opinion that I would like us to consider opening it up to maybe more citizens representation. And I understand about the size of any committee, but I think, not just to focus on Mr. Crawford, but he did provide invaluable assistance, I think, when we had a meeting. I don't know if he's suggesting he'd like to serve, but I think he'd be an excellent representative.
I think if we look at D4, we have listed here the ones that we thought should be there. And I'm wondering if we, instead of having one citizen at large, we could have two.
Two would be.
Which would be responsive to his concern. And then maybe not have the one budget commission member because we have the prosecutor who's also on the budget commission listed. So,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
so if we remove the one budget commission member, because we'll have one, and then have two citizens at large, we still have a reasonable sized committee that's odd numbered in terms of the numbers.
And that's fine. I think the Budget Commission, I think that was originally my suggestion because I just thought money and the
Right.
process is certified and then
Right.
appropriate. That would be a good checks and balance, but.
Right.
And then on the resolution, Deb, where it says the first resolved, I would like it to say that the Board of Commissioners agrees to seat an oversight committee as follows, and take out with a member from the department or organizations, mainly because we have two citizen members. And it would still say the same thing. Is that all right? Shall we take action then on this one? On
By
D4?
making that addition, the two citizens?
Yeah.
Certainly. Would you like to make the motion?
I so moved
To create one,
to create the Portage County Sales and Use Tax Oversight Committee.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
So the next step would be to draft a letter to each of them asking them to serve, right?
And I would, just my opinion, I would contact Mr. Crawford and let him know and that we have increased it. And I guess it would be solicitous to ask him if he'd like to serve, or anyone else for that matter.
On his draft, which is D5,
I'm still looking for it.
Did he present this program in August to you guys, these
Well,
slides?
you know what this is. They arranged a meeting through Maureen to meet with the sheriff, to listen to the Tea Party and and for the Tea Party to listen to the sheriff to determine need. With the idea, I think they're very supportive of our efforts. They're very concerned about the issues that we have with addiction. And so it was a really good meeting, I thought.
It was very
And
good.
what this is essentially is his notes, Crawford's notes from
Okay, so
that
he
meeting.
didn't present this or anything, it's just that he
No,
went
this
through
is
this? Okay.
what we talked about, and he did a very, very thorough job.
Yes, he did.
Of putting in on these pages the
Yeah.
kinds of things that we talked about.
You know, one of the things that we concentrated on, or that was brought up primarily, I think, not just Mr. Crawford, but by the Tea Party members there, they wanted to emphasize to their membership the cost of associated with theft, shoplifting, because listening to the sheriff and in the sheriff's reports, there is an increase in those call-outs, not only I think with the sheriff, but other police departments, that they are going out on more thefts and some with the big box stores, not exclusive to that, but I think what they wanted to do is they wanted to try to associate a dollar amount, because they thought if they could say to their membership, look, this is really costing all of us
That's right.
$1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 or $5 million a year more, because those retail stores then have to raise those prices to cover.
We all pay.
Right. And Kathleen, at the time, I thought you said that there was some entity at the state level that might be able to identify that. I don't know how far we ever,
Yeah.
or they ever got with that. I know
don't
that
know.
was the premise.
On his report where he says next step for us.
Yes.
His number 1 is exactly what you're talking about.
Oh,
right.
And it was really an important suggestion that he
Yes.
made because he is saying, and I think we all agree, that if the public only knew how much this is really
Exactly.
costing,
Yeah.
because it's not just the cost of the jail and prosecution and all of that. Our prices at the local box store goes up, and the grocery store goes up because of theft. People are having their homes broken into.
Our insurance goes up.
Right.
when we
Your
apply.
insurance goes up, and so it's the cost as well as the
Yeah.
safety. So we're trying to figure out,
How to get that cost.
and I think Mr. Crawford is going to help us to try to figure that out also, how to get a handle on these costs. Now, some of them we can get a handle on, but I don't know exactly where we can. But I know that almost every retail business adds a factor in their budget.
Sure.
That's called, what is it called? There's a word for it.
Making me whole.
Yeah.
What's it called, Mike?
Say, shrinkage, that's it. It's called shrinkage. And that number, if we could, I don't know if we can get the cooperation of any private businesses to tell us, but shrinkage cost would be one factor, right? Insurance and home, auto, and so forth.
Right.
Insurance companies might be able to give us some information about that.
But I think that, again, it's costing all of us.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
know, the other areas they were talking about, was it adult probation, and we emphasize those during the meetings, and we have that report that showed that. So there's no attempt to exclude any of those. That's what
Right.
we'll delve into.
Right.
Because they are much needed, particularly when it comes to those bracelets that whole system of being
Yes.
able to monitor people. I mean, we're very well aware of that, and that'll all be incorporated.
And then number 2 is pretty easy for us to get those numbers, working with the sheriff. And number 3, I don't think we need to do number 3 because what we're doing is having a line item put in the budget specifically for this, which will be online, so that people can see how much is coming into that fund and how it's being spent.
Right.
So there'll be a way for citizens to monitor.
But now, are we going to delegate these to someone to get this together, or, I mean, it sounds like he's wanting some answers here.
Well, we had offered, we had some staff that were helping, I thought. I don't know what came of that.
At the very back part of his, looks like slides, on the very back part, and throughout his report, he indicates that there's line charts needed. And I think those should be pretty easy to get.
Well, but it's, who are we going to ask to get those?
Right.
Is that,
Was Mr. Crawford volunteering to try to get those?
no, I
didn't see
think when we had the meeting, we offered actually our staff, and that was Todd, I think you, Deb, Joanne, who very openly did that, in a sense of trying to help gather the information that they wanted. That was some time ago. And I'm not sure what we were able to.
The only thing I did was call the sheriff's department and see if
all
he
right.
had any information
Was
about
Todd able to
shoplifting.
gather any information? Because I
I'm
think.
not sure anybody knew exactly what you wanted to gather. This is the first time we've seen it in writing.
Yeah.
We asked for this sheet to be given to Todd to see what he
Yeah, I already sent
could
this to him.
collect.
He has
Okay,
it.
good.
And then on this one, the last chart that he has, you know, Joe Maury had a session with a very large number of people representing governments and agencies throughout Portage County. And they did a gap analysis. And that report is available. It's color-coded, and it essentially does very much what it does is it takes a person who is arrested and takes you through each step what happens to that person.
Yeah.
And I think that this chart right here, if we had that to give to Mr. Crawford to look at, I think he might agree that does the job.
Kathleen, what was that, what was that called? I know Joel has referenced that.
It's a
many
gap
times.
analysis.
The gap analysis.
Yeah, that's what I
So
think it is.
we could get that from Joel?
Yes, and we have copies here.
Oh, all right, so then we
Okay.
already have, let's put that together.
And-
I think that's an excellent idea. Let's compile whatever we do have, ask, as Kathleen suggested here, Vicki, Todd to come up, look at the other missing piece,
Yeah.
and see what we can compile to put together.
The reason I like this suggestion is that the public will, if you gave them a sheet like this, they won't read it. It's just,
But if they
you know.
see.
But
a
if you
graph,
put it in
yeah.
picture form, which
Yeah.
these charts are, it's very meaningful,
Yeah.
and they will look at it, so.
Yeah. All right, so we're in agreement, we are
Yes.
going to
Yes.
offer our staff assistance to gather it.
And now that they have this in writing, they have a little better.
So you're saying take this, which is what you handed
Yeah.
out, because he refers to Exhibit BC, and change it to the aligned chart, putting the information that we
Yes.
put in there
Yeah.
in a chart form.
Maybe you could, I was so proud of that. Well, only because so many people rallied and contributed to it, such as
Okay.
Tammy Devine from
Mm-hmm.
Job and Family Services, Children's Abuse. So maybe it could be an addendum to that, or,
I could just change it.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with this? You're going to hand this out? Because their
Well, I'd
first
like
public
to-
hearing's
No, I'd like to
today.
keep that. I think some people will see value in that. Yeah, no, I want to
Do we
keep it.
have any handout to give to our folks that come in?
Just the agenda.
Well, then we better copy some of these.
Well, you know what I think when, unless I misinterpreted, what Tom and Mr. Crawford, I don't know Mr. Crawford's first name.
Carl.
Carl, thank you. I think the intent was that they know we're going to enact the tax, and they want, during this 5-year period, to inform the public so that the public will understand the issue and be supportive when it comes up for renewal.
They just want accountability, I think, and transparency.
Right, and that's kind of what this is about.
Well, I still think that one handout, it's concise, it's condensed. We should have something like that.
For today.
Oh, okay. We make copies of
Well,
that.
yes, or anybody that
Yeah.
said, by the way, do you have anything I can read?
Right.
Okay. I can
And
get that ready
along
today.
with-
Okay.
We
Just a couple.
certainly can share this.
Yeah.
I would think that's why he gave it to us, so maybe some copies of this.
On the page 3, where it says, "Dear Commissioners and Sheriff Doak," that really tells the intent of the Tea Party. And so I'm very grateful. I think that it's
I
very
agree.
helpful.
And that's why I think we should appoint Mr. Crawford. Okay, and we're going to continue based on that, huh?
Deb, just one more note. Do you need anything in your spare time that I can?
I'll make something ready this week. That's true. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, okay. Journal entries are journal entries, and if you have time to look them, I'm sure you will take time to look them over before we pass them later. Okay, are we ready for, no,
When Judge Pittman comes,
yes.
could we ask Todd to be in the room also?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it's going to be essential, because I think I saw, I need money.
Yes, you did see that.
Yeah.
All right, we've gotten through, do you want to take a short recess?
Yes.
Sure.
We're going to just recess. Morning,
How you
Deb.
feeling?
I'm fine.
You look great.
Thank you.
Everything going well?
Yeah, everything is going exceedingly well. I'm very,
Good.
very fortunate. Yeah,
Our
I'm good.
Judge Dory is in the hospital. Her blood count's down.
Who is?
Judge Dory, she's in the hospital.
Oh, no.
Her blood count is down. She's
Well,
an
I'll tell you,
Aboriginal.
a hospital stay
She has
will
an
just,
infection in her body.
yeah,
She's gone through a couple bouts. Yeah.
well, a hospital stay will cure you of ever wanting to.
Ever go in there again? I was in for one day for my gallbladder, and that was it.
Particularly if you were a hyperactive child. Oh, it's,
Scribble. And I had to stop for a minute.
Are you ready?
yeah, really, it's,
We're here, I'm here on behalf of the Adult Probation Department as the administrative judge.
May I get
I don't mind waiting for him.
you don't mind waiting?
No. No,
Is he on his way? You know, it'll be a minute.
that's fine.
Because he's going to be the go-to guy anyway.
Yeah, that's why I figured, might as well do it now than later, right? Here he is.
Speaking of the angel.
That was wonderful.
We're here today, I'm here today as administrative judge on behalf of the Adult Probation Department. As you know, the Adult Probation Department has been swamped with the influx of heroin cases, and they're on the front lines helping us try to resolve the jail issue. As you know, we have over 1,300 supervised felony probationers right now, and over 1,000, maybe 1,100 misdemeanors. There's over 1,300, about almost 1,400. Matter of fact, we have packets for you.
It's got a kind of a summary of what we're going to talk about.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And our caseload, the Adult Probation Department caseload, has risen over the last 5 years incredibly high. We have, in 2010, we lost 3 probation officers, 3.5 matter of fact, because of the budget woes, and we have not replaced those individuals, even though our caseload has increased. I guess bottom line is that we are swamped, and our folks are feeling it. They're stressed, they're overworked, and again, they're on the front lines preventing half of these people from going to jail or prison or breaking into your homes, and we need to do something for our Adult Probation Department. As you may know, we are one of the few departments that have gone out and received our own grants, not with any help by the county, except that obviously you have signed off. But we have 5 grants that we have received ourselves that are currently pending. Is that correct, Kathy? We had a SIS grant that we lost to the federal system a couple years ago, but we have 5 pending grants, and we're paying our people out of those grants. Quite a few of our people. And you probably see, this will demonstrate, do you have this one?
Yeah, that's
It'll demonstrate who's getting paid out of what and how we're doing the balancing act. We're very fortunate. I think we are the top department, adult probation department in Ohio in receiving grants. Is that correct, Henry?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And again, it's by the hard work of Kathy and Henry and myself and John Thomas, who is our grant writer. Even though he's not specifically our grant writer, he does a lot for us. But he's helped us write many of these grants, and we've received most of the ones that we've applied for, and we'll keep doing that. My first issue is that the Adult Probation Department employees have not received raises in many years. I am asking you for a 5% raise. We did not include that in our budget. Is that correct, Kathy, for this year?
That's correct.
Because we were told not to, that would be adjusted at some time in the future. But these folks are on the front lines. They're carrying the heavy load. And they're seeing other departments receive, increases. My department hasn't, but there are other departments that have had increases. And I'm not comparing apples to oranges, but I know that these people are working hard and they're overwhelmed. So that's the first thing I'm going to ask you for, is a 5%
For
raise.
clarification, we did give across the board raise
Right,
1.5, so
Right.
they have had that
right,
in the last 5 years.
right, right. But I'm talking about other departments receiving raises. And again, these folks have been on the front lines, and they haven't received much in the last 10 years. They haven't.
Can I point something
Go
out
ahead.
here too? The grants that we have, particularly the ISP grant and the state grants, year to year we put in for the increase, cost of living increase. And so those are separate funds that we have that we could pay those, but only specific people out of those funds because they work on those funds.
Right.
So we don't give them the increase because we can't get the increase for everybody through the general fund. So at the end, we creatively use that money in other ways.
Sure.
Which in the end helps the county too. We buy
Oh,
our
yeah,
copy
offsets
machines.
the other costs
We
that
buy
are
copy
out
machines
there.
and computers and whatever.
Sure.
On this chart where it says supervision fees, these are fees that you take in. Aren't those turned into the general fund?
No.
No.
It's a separate
Yeah,
fund.
and matter of fact, we never used that fund for years. And then when the financial crisis hit Portage County, that was when Bob Fankhauser was still the head of the probation department, and Chris Miles and Kuiper were here. I think you were here, Maureen. That's when they asked us to use that supervision fee. We had never used it before. It was up to
Yeah.
200-some thousand. They asked us to use it to pay employees, and they promised us that we would get it back to be able to buy equipment and things of that nature, and we've never had it returned to us. And that was probably, I would say, 8 years ago.
But you still have supervision fees. What
Right.
line item? Todd, do you know what this is, the supervision fee?
No, I don't know.
The line item is 1120, fund is 1121.
Yeah.
What is it intended for?
Those are fees that probationers pay, okay, to be supervised by the adult probation department.
So it's intended to be used for personnel costs, correct?
Originally, it wasn't.
For offenders, drug testing, training, different things
For all
like
the
that.
things that it
Right,
Right.
right. Instead, now we're paying employees out of it.
And
And
when we met with adult probation, and also the judges reinforced this, oftentimes as you have people waiting to go before a judge, the judge or someone might observe that they think that they're on drugs.
I'm getting to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm getting to
sorry.
that.
I just wanted, for the
Right.
sake of the people that are
Right.
in the audience.
Well, and I really appreciate, I'm the one that came up with the idea with Kathy and Hank. I said, you need to have the commissioners come up and see what you do. It's easy to hear all the terms and to see the numbers, but when you actually see what the people are doing.
We're there,
It's
and
a
it was impressive.
And, you know, I am so proud of you to take the initiative to come up there and do that. I asked Kathy to show you because I think once you see what they're doing, it makes a big difference. And right now, and that's one of the other issues I'm getting to, is that we need an additional $10,000 to $15,000 in our budget, probably for this year, because we are doing over 105 to 110 urine tests a week. Okay, and that's only going to go up. Judge Doherty does some people every day, and
105, did you say?
105 to 110 a week we're doing. Now think about that. It's what, how much, $8 to $10 for a kit, maybe?
When we used to charge $12.50 per test.
But it costs us
Yeah.
$8 to $10 per kit, okay? That takes an officer
Yes.
20 minutes to 30 minutes to do the routine, taking them away from their caseload, okay? That's the next issue I'm going to get to.
And you said before too that court could be going on, or they're supposed to appear, and the judge will observe and then have to call an officer over
It happens,
immediately.
it happens almost every Monday and Friday when we do arraignments. I'll look at somebody's eyes and I can tell. And I'll say, you know what, you're subject to random drug screens. I want you to go right now as part of your bond. And I have not been wrong yet, have I, Hank? I'm batting 1,000. Every single one that I've looked at has been opiate or amphetamines. It's mostly opiate and some marijuana, but
And these
mostly
are people that are
opiate.
going to go right then before a judge to be sentenced.
Exactly.
And they're on drugs.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Could I just ask for clarification? You said you used to charge $12.50 per test. Is that to the person that has
That's
to have it
correct, to the
done?
offender.
Why is it used to?
Because it's hard to get the money out of them. You know, they have no money.
And a lot of
So we
these
can't
people-
turn them away.
and a lot of these people aren't on probation yet, They're just bond clients. They haven't pled, they haven't been found guilty, so they're not even on probation yet.
Can we, I don't know if this is possible, can we accumulate whatever charges they have, even though they can't pay them at the time we pay them? But then when they get ready for probation, ask them to pay up?
That is the supervision fee, Kathleen,
Okay.
that we require them to pay. But keep in mind, not many of them have the ability to pay.
But if they're indigent, they.
Yeah, you can't take them back to court because they failed to pay their supervision fees, just sort of like court costs.
Yeah.
You used to be able to take them back to court, you can no longer take them back to court because of their failure to pay court costs, because many of them are indigent.
Yeah, when they get a job, can we ask to have them?
If they're on probation, you can ask them, but again,
You don't really have any teeth.
No.
we don't.
But we do the best we can.
And we've done well trying to get the supervision fee. Again, now, because of the opiate crisis, we're testing these people more. It used to be, we test them once in a while, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, but now it's every week.
There's like checks and
You know,
balances,
and
keep them honest.
so it's something we're going to have to put up with for a while, because we just had a kid die last week, and, you know, it's something we're going to have to put up with.
Judge, I would assume, are earmarked to go to jail. Of course, the jail's overcrowded, so they can't go to
Right.
jail. So then adult probation becomes more of a center of focus, because
They are.
these people have to make sure that they are monitored with those
Yeah.
scram systems.
And
so that-
GPS and
Right, so that
EMHA.
they don't go out and break in someone's home. And
Right, right. And, you know, some of these felons especially, they're bringing in more often to see their POs, because, you know, they are the high-risk individuals that we do not have in jail. I mean, it's horrible for a judge to sit there saying, this person deserves to be in jail, I don't have room, what am I going to do with them? And then that's when I call on Kathy and Hank to say, you know, you need to sit on this person, you need to monitor them. And we don't have a surveillance team anymore, so we can't go out and do surveillance to see what they're doing. We have to rely on our electrical units, EMHAs and SPRAMs and whatever. My third issue that I wanted to bring up is that obviously, you can see, we need more people. I'm asking, and again, I know it's a pipe dream, but I'm asking to get back our 3.5 people that we lost in 2010. We need somebody to just do the urine screens, because 107 urine screens, that'll keep somebody busy in a week. We need another pre-sentence investigation writer. And we need at least a receptionist on the second floor, which is where we do our scram units, our EMHA. We have nobody down there but the officers to check people in.
500, about 500 people a month report there, and there's nobody there to check them in. I remember when we were there, we had that bell. Yeah, the bell. Yeah, nobody.
We had
sits there.
2,500 people that reported to the Adult Probation Department in August alone. 2,500.
You know, Judge, you said the surveillance team is no longer, is that because?
We don't have the funding.
No, okay.
I would love to have a
Did we used
surveillance
to
team.
have
Oh,
one,
yeah.
and then
We
we
had one when,
didn't have money?
in 2010 is, I think, when we
did the
disbanded
lay-
it.
Well, we had to do the layoffs.
Yes, and, but I would love to have one to go out and check on these people, knock on their door, see if they're home, you know, instead of, you know, that would be a great thing.
What did you
because-
call that position?
Which one?
one that was-
Receptionist, a PSI writer.
Or
That's-
surveillance officers.
Surveillance
Yeah.
officer.
I mean, I would love to have that, but we have pre-sentence investigation writer, we need that. We're backlogged. They're doing a great job trying to keep their head afloat, and some other officers are helping, but again, they're sinking, folks, and you can see the stress on their face. They're sinking.
What, you mentioned 3.5 people, one for urine testing, one as a receptionist, would that be full-time or part-time?
I think the receptionist would be part-time, or
we could-
full-time.
We
Because
could
the PSI
probably use
We have a part-time receptionist. We had a full-time receptionist that when she moved, we replaced her part-time. So, yeah, truly, we could use a full-time, and then she could shift between
And
the
the
both of
PSI
us.
writer could be a part-time, right?
Yeah.
We
And
could
we
do it
could-
that way.
Because the board said we could not replace a full-time.
Right, right.
Back.
Support staff.
Again, you know, we've tried to do the best we
So
can.
that's 2.5. What is the third one?
We need a person to do all the drug testing, okay?
Yeah.
That's number one. We need at least a part-time PSI writer. We need a full-time receptionist, and probably another half probation officer to help cover the loads. I mean,
So that
and we can
comes up
switch
to
things
3
around
people.
too, yeah.
That comes to 3.
They do pre-sentence investigation reports, so that's a report that the judge sees before they sentence the individual, and it's probably about 14 pages long. They have to go into leads and look up their records. They have to sometimes contact other states, get information. Then they go through their background, their education, their home life, employment, all that. And so it's very time-consuming.
We had 86 referrals in the month of August.
Yeah, 86 alone, and we got how many writers?
Three PSI writers.
3 PSI writers
That's
to do 86. That almost takes a day to do, one. And so you have to talk to the victims. It's a big deal. So I know I know everyone is coming to you for more money, but this is a dire need. And, if you can look at this, look through the packet, understand what they're up against.
And if I can interject one before we conclude here, the caseloads, the grant, the ISP grant is written for 70 offenders per officer. We're currently averaging about 130 per the grant, which is a violation of the standards.
Right.
And that's another reason why the judge is coming forward for another officer. We have to get those caseloads down to be effective because you're working.
Do you, 70 per officer, how many do we do? 100 and?
We have 3 full-time ISP officers, and I take a caseload too, and mine has increased as well, but they're at 130. The grant is written for 70.
Yeah.
So we're like
So,
double.
and so you think about it, if they're sitting meeting with their clients every week, they're not spending much time. And so that's hurting our effectiveness. They need to spend 20 minutes to a half an hour. They're not able to do that. They're spending 10 minutes with them if they're lucky. And it just can't keep on this way. It cannot.
One thing that you mentioned early on was that you've been doing grant writing. I think it's wonderful. You've been very successful.
We have.
But I would think that would be, to me, it seems like that every department should be doing that.
Oh, I agree.
That, because you know what grants are out
Right.
there and all of that.
But we don't have the personnel to do it, so John Thomas, he does it on his own time. And Kathy and Hank and I have helped write them on our own time. And I'm okay with that, but I want you to know, we're not sitting on our butts and just not doing anything. We're actually out there trying to bring in money.
And the criteria for the grants that Hank supervises, the ISP and we have the intensive supervision grant, then we have a dual diagnosis offender grant, and the ROSIP grant. And I know that you're aware because we get letters from you acknowledging
Right.
the success that we've shown in getting incentive money,
Yes.
which we've used to better the department.
Identifying the grants that we are eligible for and that are desirable to try to gain can be your job. But we asked Todd Pease from Regional Planning to assist
Right.
with grant writing.
Right.
So that's a resource that maybe you could draw upon as well.
We'd be glad to do that, but we've been pretty much on every grant that we can possibly.
That's available, right.
And I'm going to tell you this right now, that this adult probation department has been recognized as one of the best adult probation departments in the state for years. And that starts with Judge Cainrad. I'm give him all the credit in the world that he saw the need. Bob Fankhauser also saw the need, and they jumped in on it. But Kathy and Hank have taken it to a new level. And, you talk about programs. For our little county, they have adopted and initiated some programs that are just very progressive and way ahead of anybody else. And that's why our recidivism rate is less than any other county around us. And you can look at ODR, or the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation Corrections numbers. They've done a great job. So I just want to say that. So I'm their champion.
That is impressive. We're impressed also because I've been aware of several of the programs that you've initiated to get people back on track.
Right, right. Well, and then kudos to you all for going up and looking at the department and that meant a lot to the people that work there.
It meant a lot to the whole
It did,
staff.
because
It
that
really
you
did.
care about them, because they feel like they're kind of the orphan children.
Yeah, just kind
You
of
know, I mean,
forgotten.
yes, the
Forgotten
stepchild.
in the-
That's what they feel like.
Yeah.
And so, for you even to sit down and listen to us, but we really do need those 3 items to be reviewed by you.
Sure.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Quick question.
Yes, Todd.
You talked about the maybe 10 to 50,000 this year for testing.
Yeah.
Is that also equating to 40 to 50,000 on top of what you requested next year as well?
Right. It's just that the numbers have swelled that bad, and it's getting worse. It keeps, I bet you we'll be doing 120 to 130 starting next month. I mean, it keeps adding up.
If you want to keep the jail emptied out.
Yeah, if not,
Or-
guess what?
Yeah, the jail.
Yeah, I mean, that's our only alternative, so.
Well, we really appreciate all the work you put forward to present.
These 2 are the ones right here. I mean, they're the ones.
Well, and your staff.
Yeah, our staff.
Yeah, but
yeah,
they're great leaders, and they've done a great job.
Do you still have the KISS program?
No, that
Sis-
was,
No, because that was a federal grant, and we only had it, but Tim Ryan and I have talked, so we may have something else in the works.
Good.
That was such an impressive.
It was a nice grant, too.
And we did a lot with it. We had like over 100 people obtain their GEDs through it and become employed, and
Nice
it was a
food
great.
drives,
yeah.
nice clothing drives.
Yeah, we
It
did.
was really
But we're
good.
going to work on something else with the federal government, and I'll keep you apprised of that.
Whenever we meet, of course, I represent our board on the Safety Committee. The committee where it's mostly the judges, the prosecutor,
Corrections
the
board.
sheriff.
The
Yes,
corrections board, yeah.
Corrections board, adult probation.
Right.
And they go over the reports in that meeting, and every meeting, the increase in the number of people going through adult probation, the necessity of them to go through adult
Right.
probation, has been on the rise tremendously. for years.
Yeah, I mean, our caseload alone is up, I've told you that before,
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
100%. We used to do 30 pretrials when I first came up in 2005, a month. I'm up to 80 to 90. So I'm telling you, it has, and we haven't increased our staffs at all. So anyway, that's,
These 2 sheets here, what do we compare
oh, I
these
forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that's
During the presentation, when you came to our department, we talked about the wage adjustment management system. We had checked with some like counties. Licking County, I
Licking
think, is
County,
very
yeah.
similar to ours.
That is.
That is, I put their wage
okay.
in there, and then Summit County
can you
is,
see the difference?
Summit County is, a little different than ours.
It's remember, we talked
The
about
very,
CMS.
the very end, the very back, yeah, the very back.
They're not supposed to be compared.
The Summit, and then
What do I got, I guess?
she doesn't have ours.
Oh, so that was Summit and Licking.
Where's ours, though? She doesn't have ours.
Oh, I didn't bring ours. Well, we have,
It's in there.
yeah, we have what we have.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's in there. It's right here. Here's our rate of pay.
Yeah, it's a big, it's a
It's separate, yes, that, it's separate from,
So if you look at the similar counties, we're not comparing ourselves to Summit County, but Licking County.
You want to take mine too?
But concerning the salaries, we have wanted to accomplish a revision of the CMS, because the purpose of that is to determine job worth based on the market for government employees for comparable communities. And then we have some assurance that we're paying the right amount for the right job. And so we need to try to get that done.
I'm in
again,
agreement with
because
that.
it's way out of date.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, the one thing with Summit County, I
10
mean,
years,
even
I
though
think.
we're not a like county, they supervise, their ISP is 70, so I mean, we supervise so many
Yeah.
more than what they do, they have more officers.
And then in 2012, there was across the board raise of 1.3, and in 2015, a raise of 1.5. So they have gotten raises in the last 5 years. It may not be enough to be comparable for job worth, but that's something we have to look at.
And I understand that, but I know when municipal court has given some raises recently, and other
Yes.
departments,
Yeah.
and it's just hard when these folks are stressed anyway.
Right.
They're just, busting at the seams, and they're hard workers, as you know. They've gone up above and beyond, especially these two. Like I said, they take their work home, and they do it at home.
Well, it compounds that situation, and unfortunately, I know you don't want to hear this, we oftentimes do not know when the other elected officials get raises. Right. They have the ability to send that directly to the county auditor, she implements the raise.
And I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm not saying that at
No
all.
one's saying that, but we have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Well.
I'm just saying these people work with that unit, and they work as hard.
Yes, I know that, I know.
We do know what's going on with the general fund. It's not from the general fund.
We don't know, Kathleen, in the general fund, if it's a general fund, such as the clerk of courts or any of these others that have given them, we do not know when they give those
Until after
increases,
the fact.
no matter what fund it's paid out of.
Well, if you
We
excuse
do
me,
not know that.
If you excuse me, I will.
You can do whatever you want, Kathleen, but we do not know. It's happened with the prosecutor, it's happened with the sheriff, those are all general fund departments. It's happened with the clerk of courts, although that was another fund, but part of the clerk of courts is paid out of the general fund, so, again, oftentimes, we do not know. They don't come to us and say, by the way.
If I could make my point,
Go ahead and make your point.
thank you.
It's a
What
moot
happens?
point Anyway.
Pardon?
I said it's a moot point anyway.
It's a very important point, and what happens is that we, through the budget process, allocate a certain amount of money for personnel
Right.
in the general fund. We don't control some of the other funds. So if a person, an elected official, for example, has someone that quits mid-year, there's money there, they can, without our knowledge and permission, use that money to give everybody a raise.
Right.
But then, what happens with the next year, budget year, either they have to have funds to sustain that rate, or they have to decide to lay someone off, depending on how much we can afford to give them the following year. So when these things happen, it can't happen in the general fund unless the money's there, has been allocated.
Right.
But that's how it happens.
What I'm asking again, because these folks are working their butts off, they have not been given job worth, they need a 5% raise, and again, they deserve it.
And
That's all I'm asking.
And the last thing too, I don't know if you guys have been following the newspaper, the state's letting many people out of prison.
Right.
And guess who gets to monitor?
And we have to monitor them, so.
In
at
addition, they
least you're-
closed 2 prisons. The state closed them, and they said, hey, by the way, locals, it's your problem.
Oh, yeah.
You
I
take
mean,
care of it.
everything's being thrown back in local lap.
And no money.
we know that. So we're just going to have to adjust and try to handle it. And so far, like I said, we're keeping our head above water, but not for long. We have to do something with the
And when
probation
they're in
department.
cars with 3 or 4 of them riding up and down the streets and preying on people's homes, we're kind of powerless to do anything.
Or robbing their grandmother.
Right.
We see that all the time.
Just to kind of review a little bit, the county cannot spend money we don't get.
I know that.
And so we've all been frustrated because of the recession that we've recently had. The fact that the state government cut our local government funds by 50%. They took away the estate tax. They took away the tangible personal property tax. They decided that felonies 4 and 5 would no longer be addressed by the state with their money, but
Right.
rather come to us with
And
our
felony
money.
3s now.
And now the felony 3s.
And some felony 2s. So you guys, it's going to be pretty soon, everything.
So they're transferring additional costs to us.
Right.
They're taking away some of the tax base that we've had. And add to all of that, the fact that there's no interest on our investments.
I know.
So we've just been, below 1% even.
Right.
So what has happened, and in spite of the fact that we've had an inflationary time, as we always do, when prices go up, we've had a reduction in the amount of funding that we've had. So it's really resulted in flat funding for us for revenue for the last 5 years.
I realize that.
And every household is faced with the same dilemma. It isn't just government.
And I realize that. All I'm asking is if there is anything else in your coffers, and
Right.
again, I can't stress what these folks are going through. They need relief, a little raise would be nice, An extra couple people would be, I mean, we have to. We're going to lose our grants and stuff if we don't.
We just
We're gonna
can't
have to.
adequately
Well,
supervise
from what
70
you
people.
described, I mean, and that's your call, your priority, it seems like not having that surveillance officer is a real detriment. I'm sure
But
there are other priorities.
I think we need an additional officer because
Yeah,
their
yeah.
caseload is so, we're going to lose the ISP grant if we don't
Right.
cut our,
Okay.
everybody's caseload. And they're not effectively monitoring these people if you can only spend 10 minutes with them.
And
You
that
know,
would-
and that's, I guess that's the bottom line.
So you're saying we need 3.5 people?
We do. I mean, we cut that in 2010, and our caseload has doubled. I mean,
I wrote down PSI as the surveillance officer, but is it ISP?
PSI is a pre-sentence investigation officer that writes the report.
And what is-
ISP is intensive supervised probation, and then surveillance officer is different. An ISP officer we absolutely need because our caseload is too high. If we have a receptionist, we might be able to, or a PSI writer, we might be able to do half PSI writer, half probation officer.
You know, some of these needs we hope to address with this sales tax. I mean, it's essential we have to. We don't want a federal judge coming in here and.
And we don't want to lose our grants that we have,
Right,
because that's
and
what's
we don't wanna
paying
lose
half
the
of
grants.
our,
No, no,
we're paying
agreed.
half the
I know,
size.
You have-
looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look,
So
we've
that's
really
in-
done well.
That's in the offing, but you have an immediate need.
Yes.
You have an immediate
Yes.
need.
So it's intensive supervision.
Intensive supervised probation is, those are felons that have to meet every week, sometimes a couple times a week. And that's the one where we have 140 per officer, which is killing our officers.
It should be half of that. Should be half of that. By state standards.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, for the ISP grant, I think we get like $290,000. We'd hate to lose $290,000
Out of our
come back on the
grant.
general fund.
And those auditors come in routinely.
Yeah. So
monitor
that's
what-
coming,
what we're doing.
that's coming up, so we're going to need that
One other
officer.
I need this explained to me, this licking and summon. I can't, it's not in the same form.
No,
So
it's not.
What are we doing?
It's not. That.
I see the
Portage-
hourly
our-
wage.
Yeah. I didn't do, I just proposed that, gave that to you for the wage compensation study. I don't know what the next step would be for
But I
that.
mean, how can I compare that to us?
We really, right there, well, their wages, and those are our wages. But we can break that down more. And
Why
if
don't you
look-
do that, 'cause-
Yeah, if you look at Licking County, they have different steps than we have to. The probation officers are 1, 2, 3, and
Yeah.
4. We have.
I mean, there's no
1,
doubt
2.
that they're underpaid. I'm not questioning
Yeah,
it.
right,
I
yeah.
just wondered.
Yeah. If you just looked at, like, maybe the officers, what our officer's salary is, and you glanced at Licking County, but it is a little different because they're set
have
up
different
different, with
steps.
different steps. So it would take more time to go through that and adjust.
It's not apples to.
Yeah.
Right.
And we can do that. You can call
And we can
Catherine
do
and put
that,
that
yeah.
down.
You know, I don't know that that's necessary. I was just trying to make sense of it.
Does anybody, this is a digression, know what the count was in the jail today?
206 and
206?
Yeah. Again, it's because I kept a lot of people out yesterday. Should have gone.
Should have, yeah.
Should have
In the
gone.
real world,
No, I'm not taking them home with me, but they live right down the road.
And we will be very diligent about this.
And again, I don't come to you very often,
No, no.
but I'm here because there is an incredible need, and I don't want to lose the ISP grant. That's probably
It looks
most.
to me like if we lost some of these grants, I don't know what we'd do.
50% is 50% of the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, I don't. I know what we do. The jail would have people hanging out the windows.
And
Because that's all we could do.
the
That's
supervision
all we
fee
could do.
fund, it just maintains. We don't have any access in that. We're lucky we
Well, I
can.
think a lot of things have changed in the probation department in the last 5 years.
It's more social worker
Because-
than,
Yeah, because.
which is good in a lot of
Because
ways.
of the drug addiction kind of epidemic that we've had.
And that's part of the emotional strain too,
Yeah.
Kathleen, because our people are more invested in these people personally because it's more of a social worker rather than a jailer type mentality. And when they lose these individuals, like Carly lost, was it 3 in 2 weeks that overdosed and died?
Oh.
You know, that's a strain on these people. You don't realize what they're going through. So, anyway, thank you so much for listening to us, and
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
We're having a-
I'd appreciate more if you grant all my wishes.
We talked about a couple weeks ago.
All right, okay, good, good. You're welcome.
Oh.
We're having a public hearing.
Probably.
You're welcome to
Kathy,
stay.
Kathy, what's our probation office, or probationers, how many female? At least 40-some? 40-some percent? I can tell you, NeoCap, which is our site, our rehab site,
35.
almost all the girls in there are from Ohio or Portage County. So it's a big problem.
I'm gonna stay for a couple minutes.
We appreciate that.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Judge, we're having a public hearing on the sales and use tax. If you're interested in staying.
Okay, we have some people that want to come in, I'm sure.
Do they want to come in?
Sheriff's out.
Oh, good. Hi, Sheriff, good morning.
Good morning.
Just talking about filling up your spaces.
Evidently, it must be pretty full this morning.
I know you don't want to say. Dave, just take, David, just take one of these chairs and move it over here if you want to. Hi, Joel.
Some more good problems. Some more good. Go on. Real good, thank
Good morning, everyone. We are about to start the public hearing for the sales and use tax. I'm Maureen Frederick. I'm serving as president of the Board of Commissioners this year. Kathleen Chandler is vice chairman, and Vicki Klein is the other commissioner and board member. We'd ask you today to please sign in so we have a record of those that attended the public hearing. I'm now going to read the purpose of the public hearing. In accordance with the Ohio Revised Code 5739.026, the Portage County Board of Commissioners will hold 2 public hearings to hear comments on a proposed sales and use tax of a 1/4% for a 5-year period of time for the purpose of providing additional revenue for the general fund, as authorized by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 5739.026, parentheses, capital A, parentheses, 3. The Board of Commissioners pledges that the funds collected as a result of this sales tax and use tax will be expended to support criminal and administrative justice services, including, but not limited to, making payments to any public agency or a private nonprofit agency, the purposes of which include the diversion, adjudication, detention, or rehabilitation of adult or juvenile offenders. This is the first public hearing, and the second will be held on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2015, at 11:30 a.m. in the Commissioners' Boardroom, 449 South Meridian Street, 7th floor, Ravenna. I am negligent in introducing the other elected officials with us today, and that would be Sheriff Doak and Judge Lori Pittman from the Common Police Court. Many of you were in the room and might have heard her presentation on adult probation. Hank Gibson from adult probation and Kathy Cohen, the director of adult probation, are also with us this morning. I would ask now, anyone that wants to give testimony is welcome to do so, but I would ask, I'm going to administer an oath right now, and just ask you to respond that you would accept this oath. Do you solemnly affirm, under the penalties of the law of perjury of the state of Ohio, that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please respond, I do.
I do.
Thank you. Presentation of proposals, the Board of Commissioners. The proposed sales and use tax is for a continuing 1/4, 1%, or 1 penny for every $4 spent. It is estimated that this tax will provide approximately $5 million annually. The funds raised by the tax initiative are crucial to all departments being able to provide essential safety services for Portage County residents and employees. The anticipated use for the 0.25% sales tax increase for the first year includes the following: increased road patrol, approximately $400,000. That would be one position staffed 24/7 for the entire county, plus a vehicle. Increased staffing needs at the jail, $450,000. At the jail, there are corrections officers, and they are the ones that are charged with the care and the oversight of the prisoners while they are in jail. Immediately to remodel or to remodel the existing building for increased bed space, approximately $1.6 million. 1.2 of that would be for the remodeling, and $400,000 would be for staffing. To design and construction of an additional pod, this would be in the future, whether a traditional design of a lockdown facility to hold prisoners or an alternative to incarceration section is estimated to be $1.3 million for the first year. The cost of a new pod would be estimated to be between $9 and $11 million. Construction would not be anticipated until the beginning of 2018. The need for the funds. To talk a little bit about the jail overcrowding. And I don't know, Sheriff, would you be comfortable with sharing some thoughts on the overcrowding at the jail?
Well, the big concern we began to notice about 3 years ago, and it's with the female population. The jail right now, our max capacity is 218 inmates, and the female jail space is 34 beds. And we began to notice a rise in that number about 3 years ago, and it has steadily been on the increase. We could probably, if there were 38 females in there, there's, that's not that big a deal. We can usually work with the courts and get that number back down to 34. The judges have been very helpful in trying to keep those numbers under control. However, I have gone in there, one morning I went in, there were 65 females in the female ward. Another morning I went in, there were 73 in there. If this continues, if the trend continues the way it's going now, I'm going to walk in there some morning, there's going to be 100. We are just out of jail space. We have a staff there, the female corrections officers. There's a difference between the corrections staff and the deputies. The corrections officers are not required to have the training that the deputies do. The deputies have to be certified through the state. The corrections staff, the training is less. However, once they start, they do have to attend an academy within 1 year of their start date in order to maintain their certification to work in the jail. The other issue is that we have female COs overseeing female inmates. The female COs can also oversee male inmates. However, we cannot have male COs overseeing female inmates. So we get into a staffing problem as well. This trend has been on a continual climb, and we have been dealing with far too many females in the facility for a long period of time. That jail was actually built because of a federal lawsuit, the facility that's there now. The facility is 20 years old. It's probably exceeded what was expected even when it was built. Our concern is we need to do something to expand that female space and the number of beds there, or we're going to get into another federal lawsuit. So I have been talking to the commissioners a lot about that issue for the past year or two. You may or may not know that we had put a tax on them, and that levy went down. I'm a taxpayer myself, so I have concerns as well as everyone else when we're talking about taxes. However, I'd rather pay a little bit now than a lot down the road, and I believe that's where we're headed. There's been days when I've gone back into that female ward and literally stepped over bodies back there from people sleeping on the floor. And my fear is that one of these days somebody's going to file a federal lawsuit, and then we're going to have to do something. So that's the long and short of it.
The drug, you've heard it referred to, and it is an epidemic proportions. And we have quite a bit of statistical data for you. But the fact is, people who have an addiction, unfortunately, will revert to most anything to support that addiction. The jails can only hold so many. You heard adult probation, their caseloads are double. And this may have occurred to one of you or all of you. Sometimes you'll be somewhere and someone will come up to you and maybe tap on your window in your car or say, oh gosh, I need a couple bucks. I left my cell phone. Could you just give me a couple bucks, so I can call somebody to come and get me? And I'm not saying unequivocally that's always the case, but a lot of times people that are so desperate, so hooked on drugs, will be just walking around and will come up to you and ask you for money so that they can use that then to make a purchase. And it probably happens more times than you care to think about. And I don't know how many of you are personally touched by a drug problem. It's a very personal thing, and you may not want to acknowledge it, but it is overwhelming. It's overwhelming to know the number of people that have come to us and said, my grandson or my daughter, and I have gone through every dime I have to try to save that person. Every dime. I've gone through my retirement. And people will do that, make the investment in their family to try to help them. Crime is on, I believe it's on the increase in drug-related. We've had people tell us, particularly in the townships, that oftentimes they will see a car that is not familiar to the neighborhood going up and down the streets very slowly. We had a township trustee say that he walks at night with his wife, and as she was walking out to meet him, she observed this car, and there were maybe 3 or 4 people in it. And he, serving on our drug task force, the one that we had put together for the passage of the sales tax, he thought it looked suspicious, and I think he called it in, Sheriff, and indeed it was a car, I think, that had been known to be running drugs. And they had, he also said that they had someone in their neighborhood who had put their garage door up, took their lawnmower out, went behind the house to mow the grass, and when they came back to put the lawnmower in the garage, they had been wiped out. So these people that will revert to that are most everywhere, and we want to increase road patrol if the sheriff is able to do that, and I believe he would be able to do that, so that we'll have more protection out there on the roads to help prevent that kind of thing from happening. So again, it is a prolific problem. We are trying diligently to address it, particularly in the sense of added protection for the citizens. Your welfare and safety are paramount on our minds. And this is not an easy task for us to do, but we really need to revert to this to have the proper funding for all these departments that so desperately need it. Again, they have closed, I think, 2 state penitentiaries. And with the felonies, yes, go ahead.
Well, what I want to address the group and let you know is that it used to be that we would see users or people that possessed. Now we're seeing violent crimes arise out of this. We need to get these violent offenders off the streets. As a judge, if it's a felony of the 3rd, 4th, or 5th degree, if I send them to prison, guess what? They're going to be out in a couple weeks. I mean, literally months they are out. And so the only tool I have is to place them in the local jail. That's where I know I can hold them. And then maybe place them on probation. I mean, we're seeing more violent, am I right, Dave? I mean, Dave and I work closely together. We're seeing more violent crimes, more domestic violences, more robberies, more burglaries, and it's not going to get any better. A lot of our probationers or a lot of our defendants laugh in my face because they know I can't do anything to them. And that's the truth. I had a girl the other day, she's not going to go to NeoCap. She didn't want to. You can't do anything to me. We have too many women in the Portage County Jail. I said, well, good, then you're going to prison. And it was a felony of the 5th degree. She won't be there long because they can't hold her long. But I thought, you called my bluff, I'm just gonna give it back to you. But we have to have some teeth as judges to curtail this so that other people don't think they can get away with it.
And you're saying that most of these women who are put into the county jail or that you have to try to send to prison are drug offenders?
Most of them are drug offenders that I'm seeing. Don't you think, Hank, that we're seeing? Most of them are drug offenders.
Thank you.
I mean, a lot of them maybe have a forgery charge because they're forging checks for their parents.
Related to the
parents'
drugs.
checkbook to go buy drugs, or they're committing theft offenses at Walmart, or Walmart's a big one, or whatever, because
And
they're
the
trying.
numerous local drug programs that are in place aren't doing any good.
They are, but it's overwhelming. Like our new drug house that we have, our recovery house, we have 13 women in there now, and I've received some great letters from them saying, God, this is helping us save my life. NeoCap is great, but they're not keeping our defendants as long as they used to because they're overwhelmed with the population. And again, I have been told, and I think Hank and Kathy can verify, most of the female people in NeoCap, which is a recovery house, a lockdown recovery house, are from Portage County. Most of them are from Portage County.
Judge, the people that are drug users that are brought forward for prosecution are people who have committed crimes.
Or possessed.
Or possessed in order to support the drug habit.
Yeah. Yes.
The judge mentioned Walmart, and before many of you came in, we were talking with, again, adult probation and Judge Bittman. And I think Mike Sever from the Courier had to identify the word called shrinkage, but every time you go to say the Walmart or the Giant Eagle or any other store, if they've been prey to people shoplifting or stealing, and again, I'm making that association, a lot of that is predicated on maybe having an addiction problem, that cost is borne by you and me, because that cost on those products are going to go up, and you're going to be paying for that also.
Absolutely.
So again, it's just such an amoeba-like problem, and we have to do something to not only draw attention to it, but to combat it. And this is all, when we say criminal justice or we say law enforcement, it's easy to identify with an officer, a uniformed officer or a squad car. I hope I got that right. But that process involves more than that officer. That officer puts his or her life on the line and apprehends that person. But then the process begins in the sense of you have to have the prosecutor prosecute the person. You have to have the court system where the judges are to hear the case, to sentence the person. You have to have adult probation. Again, those of you who were in the room heard Kathy Poling and Hank Gibson's recap of some of the services they have and their caseloads. And it's not that they're afraid to have these caseloads, but it's all the regulations that they have to follow too, in the sense of what they can do with a prisoner. or someone that isn't a prisoner is on probation. There is, I think it's called the SCRAM system. These are, in essence, I think what everyone identifies as ankle bracelets. We have some of those, but we're in need of about $50,000, $60,000 more of them.
And alcohol's the least of our troubles right now.
Right.
One thing I want to say, Maureen, before I have to leave,
Sure.
is that a couple of years ago, we had an 85 to 90% success rate in common pleas court after individuals had gone to NeoCap as far as recidivism rate. That has dropped drastically for two reasons. It used to be that I was able to place a person in jail for 180 days, then place them in NeoCap. By that time, they were broken. They were ready for recovery. And then they go to NeoCap, and we had a great success rate. Now, I can't place them in jail before they go to NeoCap. When NeoCap does get them 90 days out, then they can only keep them for 80, not 145 days like we used to do. And so it's not successful. If we have the ability to place people in jail, get them dried out, unfortunately, but it works in the long run, break them down emotionally, that they're ready to submit to treatment, we're going to have a greater success rate. It's been proven. I mean, we used to be able to do it, but now, because we have so many, we can't follow that philosophy, and it's unfortunate. But
one of the things we also know we have to do, we want to concentrate on, is providing more one-on-one counseling services for these people with addiction. And again, the lockdown facility, as that may evolve, there are also some services we currently contract with the Mental Health and Recovery Board, or through them, where they do have counselors coming into the jail and working with these prisoners to give them an alternative also. But that needs to be drastically increased. And we also need to look for an alternative to having that type of thing, say maybe in the jail itself. The jail, and I'm sure the sheriff can reiterate for you, is just that. It is a detention center. It is a jail. And his officers are, he's short-staffed as it is. They are inundated with having to take care of the prisoners and oversee them. They are not counselors, and they should not be looked on to provide that type of service. They can't. So we have to look to the professionals, the Mental Health and Recovery Board professionals, to provide that service. Yes.
Hi, my name is Nancy Grant, and I'm a resident here in Portage County. I retired from the University of Akron with the Department of Public Administration and Studies. There's no question that we've got a major problem that needs a holistic address. My concern is that it's done holistically with planning in advance,
Yes.
and that we monitor. I spoke with both Derek Kenny and Sonia Lomano at Kent State, and Sonia's the Dean of College of Public Health. I know you know them. And there's conversations going on. I know that Derek Kenny's working with Mallory. Mallory, I don't know if he's here.
Yes, Joe.
Hi there. On a holistic, comprehensive, holistic alternative. Just, no question that we need some jail space. No question that people need jail time. Shock probation has worked. I worked with a student. We did a study on that. The recidivism rate drops dramatically when you have some shock probation. But we also need the counseling. We need the programs, et cetera. And my concern is that when I look at where you plan to pay the money, there's no comprehensive mix. There's no saying, okay, we've got this. We were here with the committee. I know working with Derek on some stuff. And they're looking at what works. Derek's gotten a number of federal grants. Sonia's gotten over $5 million that I know of. And she's worked with health concerns in prisons and detention centers. She's got this history. I've known her for over 20 years. You've got this resource sitting here in Portage County that could really build a systemic, planned approach that incorporates, research findings along with it, which I think would give you a chance at external funding, because this is a national problem. Mm-hmm. It really is, and nobody's got the answer. And you've got this microcosm right here with a major university, with a major research center, with an outreach for the community. And if you put this together in advance, and then when you go forward, you've got your plan in place, and you track what's working and what's not, and you can shift your resources.
Well, there's no reason it can't go forward, and those are the type of things.
But I want to see this in place so that I know that my money is going to make a difference. That's what I care about. Because in my family, do I have this problem? No. Do I have a friend that is marrying into a situation where, her daughter-in-law is in fact a user, is an addict, what the heck they're gonna do, she has no idea, Yeah, so it touches all of us.
Yes.
But again, I don't want to see, a building and cars on the road and not knowing what difference it makes. That's where I'm at. And, you're right. They need that shock probation. They need to understand what prison is and say, yeah, I really don't want to be here. And then they need help getting out.
Yes, we know that.
But we need to, what is the right number of days? 90 days isn't working, 180 did. Does 100? We don't know. We don't have that information. I think people at Kent State can help us get that. They might have some. And I would really like to see, Portage County be a pattern, a model for the future. And what I'd like to see in the plan for this, before it goes forward, or as it goes forward, is that comprehensive and the collaboration.
We have some other areas to address first, and we will. We're going to divvy that up here. And then, again, you're welcome to make, and we really want you to, comments or recommendations to us, and we will heed them. The coroner did supply some statistics for us. In the last 10 years, there have been approximately 128 deaths in Portage County due to drugs. Beginning in 2012, the number of drug deaths has increased each year. In 2012, it was 15. In 2013, 22. In 14, 27. To date, this year, there are 15. The heroin deaths are the most dramatically increased from 2012 to 2014. There were 45 heroin deaths since 2010, 38 in the last 3 years. In 2014, there were 18. Let me share with you, not a story, but Judge Oswick, one of our Muni court judges, had told us in one of our meetings, she had either someone appear before her, or it was a result of someone driving on Interstate 76, and there were two passengers in the car, the driver and then the passenger, and they hit those, whatever those things are.
Construction bridge.
Thank you. And I don't believe both of them were killed, maybe one was. But when they walked over to the car to extricate him, get him out, there was a needle stuck in the arm of the driver. So the point being that you don't know at any one time the effect of drugs or who is on drugs. And we all need to be very, very aware. Kathleen, do you want to talk about the...
Yeah, a couple of things. One, the number of felony drug prosecutions, cases filed for each year are listed in the packet that you received, but I'd just like to point out that in 2005, we had 258 cases, but in 2014, we had 587. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we have more deaths due to drug overdose than we do due to traffic accidents in Portage County. We do have a crisis on our hands. We have to ask ourselves how many more break-ins in our homes should we tolerate? How many more thefts? How much more do we have to pay at the local store because of thefts before we take action? And so we do consider this a crisis. The comment that was made concerning our anticipated expenses, this was stated as being for the first year. We have to make provisions for an increased female population at the jail, and we do have to increase the number of corrections officers as well as the road patrol in light of the kinds of break-ins that we're having. This is a 5-year proposal, and so part of our proposal and plan is to address the addiction in ways that are different than what we're doing now, because what we're doing now is simply not working. So we believe that we have a really great network of social service workers and agencies that provide the kind of counseling that people need. One of the most recent things we did was to support a recovery house where people who leave the jail who have had counseling, I believe they're still not quite ready to be free of drugs, can go to the sober house where they get the kind of support that you were talking about and that we need. So we're fully aware of the failure of what we're doing now in terms of making a difference, and of some of those things that we can do in the future. And since this is a 5-year levy, once we meet our requirements for providing space in jail for those who actually commit crimes, and we're obliged to put them in jail, then we can be much more flexible in looking at future plans in terms of trying to get the kind of counseling and help that people need to get off of the drugs. So,
One thing that I overlooked mentioning to you, and I know the Sheriff Doak is a strong proponent of the Drug Task Force, which is very good for all of us. And I think this was maybe as of 3 months ago, the Drug Task Force had taken $6.5 million worth of street value drugs off the streets. So that's an ongoing effort, and I just wanted to mention that and applaud him for the concentration that he gives to that. Yes, sir.
On an administrative note, there were some handouts going around. I think there were 3 of them. Does anybody have extra handouts?
we can make more copies.
Sure.
Again, related to that, what we're talking about, is there do you know how many people are in jail for victimless crimes as opposed to crimes that actually committed offense against a person? As of in jail for maybe for driving under suspension, some crime was committed.
I would think so.
I mean, we're talking a lot about break-ins and deaths and things result from crime, but I would say the jail's probably for a lot of people who really didn't commit any true crimes, who committed administrative crimes, which is basically crimes that are just on paper. So you really, to me, it seemed good that we had to. Bottom line is, the United States has one of the highest rates of incarceration in the country, in the world, basically. And they're very high. So what I'm getting at is possibly we have people in jail that don't need to be there.
Well, would you suggest that they not be punished that way? I mean, if they're forging checks, for example, would you think they ought to get a jail sentence for that?
If a forging check is taking property, that's a violation of constitutional rights, which is right to life, liberty, or property.
Right.
And if they're in jail for driving suspension, they really have not committed any true crime. They have not violated anybody's right to property or life.
Well, I don't want to argue about it. I just want to have clarification. If a person is driving under suspension, it means that they previously had committed a violation, and part of the punishment was to take away the driver's license. It often is driving under the influence of drugs, which makes us all unsafe, or alcohol. And so their license is lifted because they've been violating those provisions. So then, when they're arrested for suspension, it means that they're driving in spite of what they were directed to do. And so at some point, you have to have teeth. You have to have punishment. Otherwise, they'll just keep on driving and put us all in jeopardy.
If I may, it seems like there's some
Excuse me, could you identify yourself only because, for the record?
Sure. My name is Gary Burton. I'm a resident of Portage County.
Thank you.
And for the record, basically, it seems like a certain reason going on because we're saying they violated previous paper crimes, and now we're going to come back and suspend their driver's license. Now we're going to put them in jail for that, which is really not. There's no true crime against a person. The bottom line is, it's been said that those who give up the right to safety deserve neither. And when I go to these meetings, I always hear, well, you're going to do this for your safety, you're going to do this for your safety, but I never once hear anybody mention the Constitution. And that's a great concern to me. And if we do the math, these numbers, we're talking about heroin deaths. I did the math. Basically, if you just take the same statistics and we multiply it out across the country, we have about maybe 60,000 deaths a year from heroin. Taking 13 a year in Portage County times 88 times 50 for the country. Again, if you do the math, it's 60,000. If we look back the last 100 years and from 1900 to the year 2000, you look at those numbers, what do you think is the biggest threat to people? Who do you think killed most people? Government. Government killed the most people. Our biggest threat is not from heroin, our biggest threat is from government. And again, when I go out and talk to businesses, they have two concerns. Their biggest concern is the fact that they are looking, they cannot get people to work. That's their first concern. The second concern is government regulation. So, so businesses, small businesses drive this country. It's not the big businesses. So my concern is that more and more government regulation, more and more taxation is driving people out of business. Thank you.
Vicki, do you?
Well, I just wanted to comment on the children. I mean, this is,
Thank you.
this drug epidemic that we have. I mean, it's like a pebble in a pond. It affects so many people that you don't realize. And the children, currently there are 180 children in agency custody. I've heard some of Dave's men say, we have to pull the children away from their parents. They're hanging on to their legs, and they have to take them to jail. I mean, to me, that would be heartbreaking to have to do that. They're in agency. They're taken away from their families. This is an increase of at least 55 children as compared to this point in time in previous years. In the past year, our expenditures, this is children's services, have increased by over $1 million as a result of the higher number of children in care. And I mean, this is something that we're not talking about people dying, just the children being placed out of the family. And we're trying to reunite those, but obviously before we can do that, the parent has to be a fit parent. Says many children in the past year have entered care as a result of one or both of their parents dying from their substance abuse. So then they're left homeless if they don't have grandparents. And a lot of grandparents, I don't know how many of you know this, but I know a lot of grandparents that are raising their grandchildren. More than ever. Yes. Relatives are frequently accepting the children. If grandparents can't, maybe a sister or brother. But, this is impacting our caseworkers on this. I mean, people that deal with this, like Hank and Kathy had to leave, I guess, but I mean, they see this every day, and it just affects so many more people than most of us realize, because if you're not in the system and seeing it every day, I mean, Hank, could you give us those numbers again about the urine tests now that we do?
Oh, we do about 105 a week.
A week. And you used to be able, in years past, like maybe to do somebody, have them tested maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. Sometimes it's daily these people have to be tested. They go before the judge and they're high. I mean, there's just so many more people affected. And you're right, we do have to get control of this. Eventually, what we're hoping to do is to get in front of this drug problem. Right now, we're right in the midst of it. But we have to educate these children from the time they're this high. I mean, they have to be educated and know this is bad, because when they see these people making lots of money, I mean, they're children. And the way out of poverty sometimes is to sell drugs. Folks, we got to get in front of this problem with our children, because that's our future.
I was going to conclude this portion and then open it up for comment, if that's okay with everyone. So this will now be considered the elected officials comment and then public comment too. I don't know if, Sheriff, do you have any other comments you'd like to make, and then we'll open it up to the general public?
Other than the fact that, again, we need to do something. We're going to be involved in a federal lawsuit very shortly if we don't expand the jail space. I can see it coming. And if that's not the case, I would be shocked. We just cannot afford to have the numbers of prisoners that we're having there now. We don't have the staff for it. We don't have the resources. It's already costing the taxpayers money in overtime. Something's got to be done.
And that's going to take away our choice. I mean, they're going to choose for us.
Yeah.
They're going to tell us what to do.
Oh, yeah.
They come in and they just say, give me the checkbook, and then we'll all pay dearly. Two things that I've been asked to do, again, please, when you make a comment, identify yourself, and it's for the public record. The other is if you could speak loudly so these microphones can pick it up, because it is being taped. So, go ahead. Yes, sir.
My name is Gene Mills, resident of Rootstown. I sit here and listen to this. I've been exposed in some of the boards, mental health and recovery board, since 1979. The need in this county has continually increased. But if we go back in true figures and look at it, what it was 5 years ago, our problem is today, it's minor compared to where we're headed in the next 5 to 10 years. What we're talking about here today is baby steps to where we as a county need to go and will be required to go out of desperate needs over the next 5 to 10 years. What the facility is desperate today. But we've got to get started and started soon on the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mim?
Mrs.
Yes.
Cherry wanted to speak.
Yes, Mim, go ahead. Please.
Hi, my name is Mim Cherry. I'm a parent of a young man who has been in the system probably for about 10 years now due to heroin addiction. If it wasn't for the Portage County Jail, I believe my son would be dead right now. And it's a sad statement to say that the jail is a safe place to be. We as a family have done everything to support his sobriety. And unfortunately, it's a disease that has just taken over the minds of millions of people across our country. And I think expanding the jail is a good place to start. But I think we need to tell our community that this is just a start. We need a very comprehensive program. We can't just put them in jail and then put them back out in the street. There needs to be transitional programming. Even with probation, everyone needs to communicate. My son was just doing very well for a short time. The system failed him. He failed the system. And he's probably going to wind up either back in jail very soon or in prison for a very low-level crime. But until we get a comprehensive program going here, you're going to see this recidivism. It's just going to go on and on and on. So let's expand the jail, but let's expand our services after jail. Think about instituting Vivitrol so that when they get out, at least they've got a jump start.
Understood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next one.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir.
My name's John McCarty. I'm a resident of Portage County from Garrettsville. And I agree with a lot of things that are being said here. I should have asked the judge when she was here, is there any way that we could send these people to the halfway house instead of the jail?
They're doing that sometimes if they can.
Yeah. We do have it's called sober house.
Right.
And there are a couple sober houses, I guess, or is that called a third tier house where, as an alternative to jail, people can go and get help. But they have to be committed to wanting to get that help. And it's really under the judge's purview, I think, and the law. You heard the judge talk about the various felonies and whether she can send someone to jail or she can't. And Hank maybe can speak to that better in the sense of what offense means mandatory jail and what doesn't. But there is some latitude, and there are some services. We did provide funding to the tune of over a 10-year period. It'll be $250,000 to buy so many beds at Sober House in Kent, and that's going. I think that the potential there is 22 or 25 beds, and I think the judge said this morning there are 16 people in that program right now. There's also Root House out here in Ravenna. So there are some alternative programs, if you will, to jail. Again, at the discretion of, in a lot of times too, it's the prosecutor as to what charges they bring against a person. So it's,
Each
there's
case
just
is
so many
different.
entities involved.
Yeah.
But we do know unequivocally that these, I guess I loosely call them support services, the counseling, the thing that Mim just talked about, that has to happen. Otherwise, you're not going to break that pattern. We, about a month ago, 2 months ago, we sat with, it happened to be, I think, 6 or 7 women that night but many of them had children, adult children, who had some form of addiction. And listening to them say what really works, it's like a lifetime of rehabilitation. It has to be. You have to have all those services available to them all the time if you're going to break that pattern. And one lady's daughter was a Fulbright scholar.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. And maybe it was, I don't know, pressures of being a student or that kind of pressure that got her to the point where she became an addict. But that had been going on for 4 or 5 years. But they were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with her daughter. But it was because of these comprehensive services, making them available all the time, kind of an open door policy. The only way you're going to break that.
One more thing, do they have any sort of Bible study program at the jail? Do you know?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, they do.
But keep in mind, that's a jail, that's not a mental institution, it's not a drug rehab facility, it is a jail. And we are tapped for resources there. So anything that we can try to do, programs that we have in place trying to help folks, we will, accommodate that as much as possible and do it. But by default, we have turned into a detox center and a mental facility. It's a jail. There needs to be outside treatment when people leave there. That just needs to be done at some point. This heroin epidemic has overtaken Portage County, the state of Ohio, and the nation. It is a serious problem, and it's in our face 24/7, 365. Probably 80% of that jail population is there because of an addiction and trying to feed the addiction.
What you're saying, my relations are in the same boat here. They need some kind of halfway house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
My name's Terrence Litvanki. I'm from Burnfield Township.
Yes, sir.
And before I came in here, I wasn't sure how I felt about things. I'm glad I attended the early part of the meeting where I could listen to the group talk about the use and their overcrowding and their, instead of 70 people, they're taking care of 140 each a week. Sounds impossible. So I hope that the state is working with us. I have a concern. See, here I have a concern. We know they're not working with us as far as the money they take away. But this fall, you're going to vote for whether or not to legalize marijuana. And it's going to be on the ballot.
Yes.
And it has been my opinion for the last 30 years that is a gateway drug. And once you use marijuana, you want more and you want something else. And they are going to do that because they think it is more than a break even. They think it is a way to help control this. They think that by buying the drugs from the state government, they will do better off because they'll then have some money to take care of the people who use it. That is a circle. It doesn't make much sense. But also, I can't do anything about that.
Well,
but you guys might be in a position.
We may be terribly old-fashioned up here, but the three of us, I think last week or the week before, voted to say no to that.
Yeah.
Well, then it's our job then, if we feel that way, which I feel, why take a chance with a gateway drug when the people that you've allowed to go ahead and handle it have set up a monopoly of business that the state is going to benefit from and no one else. Okay? I have another question now.
Yes, sir.
A question. I got the impression that it was going to be a 5-year levy. Is it now continuing, or is it 5 years?
No, 5 years.
5 years. Okay, because it's continuing. Okay? Can't figure out how to solve any of these problems because they're far too great to figure out what goes first.
No, you're so right. We're hoping that people, and we do have a committee that we're going to impanel as oversight, that the proof will be there. This young lady back here was talking about monitoring. Those are all essential components of anything. Even the sober house that we have, we want to monitor that. We want the reports. We want to know how many people go in, come out, succeed. You have to have that data. And that's what we hope we will do in this first 5 years. I'm not real good at whoever was first here.
Ann Kasmerick from Aurora. You just mentioned the committee. Could you share just a few thoughts of who's on the committee, who would be on the committee?
We can tell you the composition of it. This morning, we had one citizen, and we changed that at the request of, actually, this had come through the.
Do you have that one? Do you want this?
Local Tea Party. No, I don't have it in front of me. To increase the citizen to 2 citizens. I know that isn't many, but, I'm trying to
We're
find.
going to have one commissioner on there, one judge, the prosecutor, the sheriff, one township representative, one city, village representative, a representative from Mental Health and Recovery Board of Portage County, 2 citizens at large, University Hospital representative, and Department of Budget and Financial Management Director. That's going to be the oversight committee.
Okay. And how do citizens volunteer, or how do they get involved?
We haven't gotten to that stage, but we will make it an open process and ask people to, I hate to use the word apply, but some sort of formalized process where you can request to be the citizens rep. And again, while we're going to ask representatives from the townships, people are tired of hearing me say this, but 52% of the population in this county lives in the township. So I think that's going to maybe shake out in the sense of maybe a township trustee, but that doesn't preclude that there might be someone within the township, you're still a citizen, is what I'm trying to say there. So it's going to be an open process.
And I think that most of the meetings that our government meetings are open to the
Yes,
public.
absolutely.
So we can publish and put online
Yes.
when those meetings are occurring, so that anyone who wishes to come can do that. And hopefully the committee would allow comment and
absolutely.
input.
That's essential.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just like to make a recommendation
Your
that
name
you have somebody from.
Oh, your name.
No,
Okay.
Nancy Grant, I'm sorry. I did this earlier, so I forgot. Nancy Grant, Edinburgh Township. I'd like to see somebody from Kent State on that, just so that we can continue to bring the cutting edge information to the table, back and forth. And that's just a recommendation, or suggestion.
Specifically,
From the College of Public Health, you've got a number of faculty.
Well, we also have Neomed, and we have Hiram College, so, we may be able
Yeah,
to
you might
work.
want to look at the combination of what's going on.
Yeah,
That's a number of people.
higher education.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
well, first of all, Commissioners, thank you, because I'm here as an advocate. Frank Harrison from Ravenna Township, advocate for our children. Treatment, yes. Jail capacity, that needs to be taken care of, yes. But we need to think about our children at the early age of for education, for drug programs. We have a DARE program. If you've never sat in and listened to the DARE program, I did. I wanted to make sure I understood what was being taught to our children. So our little community center worked with the sheriff and his person, and it's a great program. But guess what? It's got to be expanded. One officer or 2 officers for Portage County is not enough for all our children in Portage County. We have a CARES program that's second to none. It needs to be expanded. We need more education for our children. We can't start in the middle when everybody needs treatment or jail. We need to start at the bottom and work with our children. It's very important. And sir, you had the greatest comment of all. What is the state doing? This is what the state's doing. $2 billion rainy day fund, $2 billion. If they just took $500 million and passed it around all the cities and counties and stuff, we would have great facilities. $2 million rainy days. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
And it's raining, folks. It's raining.
No, it ain't raining. It's an epidemic. This is gone. This is ridiculous.
One of the last event, I call it, against addiction, was held over at the Kent Courthouse. Mim, what was that, about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, it was a terrible turnout.
Right.
It
Well,
was very
no, it
upsetting.
wasn't. It wasn't as big of a turnout. It was very effective. But at that and at I think the first one we did, the three of us, was a rainy Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
With the
The
CARES
turnout there
program
was
up here
bad.
on the courthouse. But what Frank has said about the children is so poignant and so very true. And you see them at a very tender age, and that night we did. As a matter of fact, I think as they walked in, and there were only maybe a handful of them with their placards, I think I asked for everybody to pay attention to them and to give them a round of applause, because they had their placards, and they were, at that impressionable age, we're going to say no to drugs. But you know the consequences when something interferes with that. When they think, whoa, wait a minute, this person over here is driving or has a new bike, or has a truck. If I sell something, or if I become a facilitator of drugs, I'm going to have some money in my pocket. That is so dangerous, and it isn't happening as Frank said in the middle. It's happening at very tender ages, probably, I'm sure, maybe grade school, and that should scare the out of all of us, because they're exposed to it. Beyond exposed, they might experiment with it, and then we've lost them. So the children, yes, all the adages apply. They are our hope. They are our future. And we'd better invest heavily in them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bob Hurd from Rootstown. I've never been to a meeting like this before my whole life. Commissioners, I have 3 points. One is you have to have compassion. I do have compassion for this woman's family, the suffering that goes on in all those families. You have to have compassion for that. I deal with the policemen and thinking what they deal with, rather.
Yes.
Have to have compassion for those guys. Blue Lives Matter and all that. They're out there facing a horrible situation now, on top of this drugs and all the running that goes on. Just it's apprehensible. I have compassion for all that. And then I have to think about, I don't have so much compassion for people who make bad choices.
Yes.
I spend every day guarding my choices so I don't make a bad choice for me or my family, because we could all die if I make bad choices or wind up in horrible situations. So bad choices come about for a lot of reasons, whatever those are. Innocent people are always hit along the head because of others' bad choices. But my third point is to have a county agency dictate a tax increase is a travesty. This year, 25.25%. This problem, crime has driven society's approach to life forever. Crime is driving how many dollars you spend, and it's going to get worse. So my point is, you have the letter of the law to support your mandate of a tax increase, but you don't have the spirit of America to do this. Now, Maureen, you voted against this tax increase once. Then you changed your mind on the second time. I believe that's correct. So no taxation without representation is an absolute now and forever. So if you put it up on the ballot and it fails, well, we all suffer. But all these grants that we're getting that we spoke of today, where's that grant money coming from? Tax dollars? Right or wrong?
Philanthropists. Yes.
Some philanthropists. Mostly, what? Tax dollars. So it's a lose-lose. In conclusion, in order to make good judgments for my family and my finances and to stay alive also, I will have to leave Portage County to make all of my taxable purchases. At Hartville, Alliance, Summit County, whatever it takes, I can do it, and I will. And all of my friends are saying this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, sir.
I'm Brian Ames, and I reside in Randolph Township. Ricky, you mentioned grandparents raising their children. My neighbor is raising her great-grandchild now because of drugs, and we're like, going over and helping them. When you're a great-grandparent, you should be able to take it easy. As far as the way I look at this marijuana thing, my brain has never done anything to me that would cause me to want to poison it. So I don't do drugs. I don't do alcohol. I don't do anything that bothers my brain. When I've gone through these minutes and studied this, I'm concerned about the process. I'm really concerned about the process. One, I'm concerned that the law has not been properly represented to you, and that you're laboring under something that you can raise the sales tax without raising the use tax. And I believe that is not the case. So that's one problem I see with it. The other problem I see is that I see in their evidence that not all the meetings that should have been open were open. I don't know, it may be my misinterpretation for that, but I've seen a reference in one set of meetings where after talking to the judges, they decided to put it on the ballot. And I did not see that was in an open meeting. When we do this, we have to be very careful.
Yes.
And I've seen in the city council in Akron there, where they got in trouble because they innocently, a couple of the councilmen started talking about something at the lunch. And they found out that they can't do that. If they talk about if they had to talk about city business, it had to be in an open meeting. So I'm wondering, I don't want us, wherever we go, I don't want us to get knocked back because we're sloppy.
You're right. That, by the way, that meeting, and you're right about that. We had our task force meetings at 7:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Those were open, advertised meetings. And we met down that hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And one morning, I believe it was the 3 municipal judges were here. And we were glad to see them, thinking they were going to participate in that meeting. And one of them said, "We would like to talk to you before the meeting starts." So, having heard that from a judge, we said, well, okay, fine. So we came in here to hear what they had to say. The press wasn't here, so.
Well, that probably violates the law.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because it was an open meeting. I assume anyone could have walked in here, but I don't know that. So your point is well made and well taken.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
My name's Ralph Cos, and I live and I work in Portage County. And I'm not so much opposed against where you're trying to go with this. I'm opposed to how you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You are taking away my vote. Vote for this, yes or no. So does that mean when you arrest someone on heroin, you're going to let them have a hearing or a trial? It's the same thing. Imposing it is not correct. We are smart enough people that it goes to the voters, and we can exercise our right to vote for or against it, however we want to.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing I want to mention is we have facilities here. I don't know the condition, but I want to remark about them. One is the old nursing home. It's right down the road. It's 30,000 square feet on 16 acres, and it's worth over $400,000. What are we doing with that building? Why can we not convert that into a women's facility or so forth? We also, Portage County Commissioners also own a 10,500 square foot building in Columbiana County, and I'm not sure what you do with that or why we own one there. So I want to look at that avenue. Maybe we should sell that. Maybe we should get money for that, put it towards some of our needs. And then the other thing, sales tax isn't necessarily the only way to do it. I'm along with Mr. Hurd. We might go somewhere else to buy our thing. Maybe a license tax, like a $5 license plate.
That was already imposed.
Well, it is imposed. But they could put another one on. I mean, it would be something. I know we have a lot of people from out of the country going to Kent State. And that is another situation. Maybe that should be taxed. There's a lot of different things, but if you take away my vote, you have trumped on my rights.
Yes.
And it's the same as if you took away a hearing or something for someone you arrest.
Yes.
Understood.
Barbara Tittle, I live in Kent. I have
The name again?
Barbara Tittle, Tittle, rhymes with little, which I'm not. Thank you. I always like when people smile at a little joke. But at least they don't call me Title. In any case, I have two questions. I hope I remember them both. One is for the sheriff. I saw your stats that were listed in the handout about daily populations, and there were only 2 months when the average was over 50 for women. And I really wish that people would quit advertising. Oh, we have to worry about a federal lawsuit. Why don't you go to a plaintiff's attorney's meeting and advertise it so that you'll get one, and then you can actually have that threat there. But the other question is, are there other facilities like out of county where excess inmates could be sent, like perhaps Summit County or other surrounding counties, or even Columbiana? I mean, I've seen that in other situations where excess inmates are sent to non-county jails, because maybe it's only like 30 or 60 days, and they could house them for a while, and then we wouldn't have the excess population. I'll wait for an answer on that one first. Are there other facilities?
There are. We have looked at that. And it's expensive.
Is it more expensive than building a new jail? I doubt
If
it.
the numbers continue to go the direction they are, and I suspect they will. I think in the long term, we would be better off to have a facility here. And your question is well taken. It's something we've thought about and looked at.
But it hasn't been addressed as much as, we could be subject to a lawsuit. That's brought up in every single article about this tax. And I'm sorry I forgot my other question. I'll have to wait until I remember. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
In response to Nancy's thing, I volunteer at the John County Jail, and there are a lot of, my name's John McCarty again, Portage County, and I volunteer at the John County Jail, and there are a lot of inmates there from Coyote. I'm not really sure what the cost is to John County though, to help with the inmates.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Quickly, Barbara Tittle from Kent. My other question was about, I know that a couple of the articles have said that a significant amount of money, tax money, comes in from Aurora Farms, and particularly for people who are not from Portage County who come to that facility, which is very popular. Do you have any estimate on the amount or the percentage of our current sales tax which comes from Aurora Farms?
I don't know, as though I think the auditors told us the state does not break it down by jurisdiction. We can check with her, but I don't think
Could you,
they,
and if you get an answer by the next meeting, I'll be here.
I don't think they do break it down by geographical area.
Well, someone must have had something that they based that on to say that some large amount comes from that. And the other question on apportionment of the tax was, I know a couple of the articles have said that it would not apply to car sales in Portage County. And how is that going to be enforced?
I think it would.
This article, in this most recent article specifically said otherwise.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, that was a statement by the assistant prosecutor at that time, which I quoted. Under with some conversation from Mr. Ames, we checked, the sales tax doesn't apply, but the use tax portion of it does.
Use tax?
Yeah, it's a
Is that
sales
like
and
license plate?
use tax, the way they do that for vehicles. That applies to where you live and will use the
Right.
vehicle and title the vehicle or the boat.
In other
Not
words-
where you buy it. That's how they get you.
They both have to be raised at the same time according to the law.
Yeah.
They can't raise one individually.
Yeah.
So you only get charged on once. You don't get charged on both the sales and use. The
That-
vehicles are charged the use
Yeah.
tax. So
I'm talking
sales,
about when you buy a new car and you pay the sales tax.
no, you're going to pay, the sales tax
Will be increased.
It will increase.
So that if you buy a car in Portage County, it will give this extra 0.25% tax.
Well, it doesn't matter where you buy it. It's
I know,
gonna be
I know it
this.
doesn't matter where you
Wherever
buy
you
it.
buy it, if
Right.
you register it in Portage County, you will pay
The
a
tax
higher
will come here.
I understand that.
yeah, they can charge you one, but yes.
But it will go up. So if you buy a car anywhere
Yes.
else, anywhere, and you live in Portage County, you get the extra
And
sales
that
tax.
$5 million does not include that, does it? That
Yeah, it
$5
would.
million projection of the.
Yeah,
revenue
it would, no, it
not-
would include that,
Well,
yes.
it doesn't, it would have been calculated on the assumption, which there's.
No,
no
it would have been
proven-
calculated on what the county auditor figured, and I'm sure that her figures would have been all
You know,
inclusive.
does anyone know how that breaks out? Like you're saying, sales and use, like
Yeah.
just say 7%, how much of that is sales and how much of it is use? I mean,
No,
is
no,
it-
No,
it's one or the other. The
No,
way
it
it
isn't.
is-
Oh, okay, it's the same
difference
number for
is-
each.
It's the same number for each.
Okay.
And the difference is the basis on which it's
Okay,
charged.
I see.
Okay, the sales tax accounts to wherever you purchase.
Okay,
The use tax goes to wherever you reside.
live, okay.
And they have the law so that you don't have to pay both. If you pay the sales tax, you don't pay the use tax.
I understand now.
The tax on
But it's still
automobiles,
good.
the tax on automobiles and boats is a use
And
tax,
so
not a
you would
sales
still be
tax.
charged the higher rate on the automobiles and the boats?
You're gonna pay that increase on
Okay.
when you buy a vehicle. That's gonna come here.
You know, whoever the
Well,
number was.
but Maureen, we've always said it wouldn't apply to vehicles and boats.
We were
No,
told
but
by,
that was the question. Yes, you're gonna pay that tax on that vehicle.
But what I'm saying, always before, we said we weren't, that was not.
Well, I don't know who said that, but they were wrong.
Denise said that. We know there's wrong.
Vicky, it was the prosecutor that told us that. so.
As an example.
If you've ever bought a vehicle, you know you pay sales tax on it.
Well, that's why
And
I'm
that
saying-
comes here.
And that's why, when the two articles
Jeez.
said otherwise, that's why I asked.
Even if you buy this on the county.
I don't understand this.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Hello, Mim Cherry from
On
Roots
cars.
Down again. I have a suggestion. I had the honor this past weekend to meet with the chief of police from Gloucester, Massachusetts, and he has instituted a diversion program in his city. Since June, he has taken 170 people. That's a lot of people, and he has kept them from going to jail. And what he has done is he has worked with different insurance companies, gotten grants, this and that, and he has put these people into treatment. They come to his jail, they turn themselves in, they say, I'm an addict, I need help, and it's keeping them, like I said, it's diverting them. When he spoke, when I met him in Youngstown on Saturday, he said that he feels that Northeast Ohio is the next Gloucester, Massachusetts. He said that he will do anything he can. I spoke with him personally. I have a picture with him putting his arm around me. But anyway, he said he would personally speak with you and tell you what we can do as a community to do a similar program. I personally think it's something
Did
worth
y'all-
looking into.
What's that program I sent you?
That's the parent, yes.
I know all about it, yeah.
And it's a good program. I have his business card if you're interested.
Yes.
I'll give you his contact.
Please, it's a great, it's
It is.
unbelievable.
It is.
You know, I'm sure it is a good one, and I'm thinking then that maybe not fairly lately, I might have seen something on the news about it or read about it. I think though, whatever this is gonna sound like, not all these problems, all the social problems in the world can be solved right here.
No.
And so you have to kind of, not pick and choose, but you have to try to address the most prolific problem, I think, with public funds. And I don't know what system they have in Gloucester, Massachusetts that allows them, or what latitude, and that's wonderful. And I wouldn't even go there here because I don't know. Not that that model couldn't maybe be applied here and I think should be looked at, but I think, you know, for us right now, I know the problems that are before us. And, you know, Mr. Hurd, to answer your concern, yes, to me, one of the most dastardly deeds, and I think I said that, used that word before, is to impose a tax. That goes against my grain.
It was against America.
Well,
It's not American.
no, well, no, but I think there's also, from when you sit as an elected official, the concern for, if I might, the safety and welfare of everyone. And sometimes, given where we are right now, that outweighs that.
It means never
Well,
trust the
and I
private
know
sector.
that you're going to say, no, it doesn't, and I, believe me, I
And
just.
I'm an American, and I disagree. We need to take care of our people and our children. I'm on the other side.
Why do I need to take care of your children? Or is it who you're
And
responsible?
if you had a problem, I'd be glad to take care of you and your children. That's
You know,
how I
Frank,
feel.
you
That's
can't-
how my God teaches me.
We can't legislate and we can't tax people into oblivion. I agree with it. Yeah, this, someone had a.
Yeah, over here.
Yes.
Sorry.
Over here, on the left.
I'm sorry, Hank, yes.
Hank Dunkel, Ravenna.
I like helping
I just
other
wanted
people
to know how
involved.
many
That's why I-
additional, determine how many
That's why I-
additional.
I can't hear.
I can't hear him either.
How many additional spaces would be available for people at the jail or new construction?
How many
Have you
spaces?
determined how many more people will be staying at the jail, or have you determined that yet?
That's a good question. We know that the capacity is now what, Sheriff? I mean, the legal, whatever capacity.
The legal capacity now is 34.
And we're at maybe 70, so it's to accommodate.
Now, that's just the female part of it?
That's the female.
We're permitted 218 total. That number has been up to 250, 260 on occasion. The additional space that we're looking at renovating would be about 30 beds.
How many?
About 30, 24 to 30.
And the current beds, you can't add any more, I take it, to the space you have.
You know, Hank, there are also, I don't know if you've been out to the jail, and I don't know, Sheriff, if you, I don't mean allow tours, but the building is, as the sheriff said, is what, 20-some years old. And there's a lot of, if you don't mind me saying, tired iron in there. The doors, the
You're talking
suppression
about the
system.
sheriff marine, the tired iron?
Yeah. No, there is. The doors, you know, it was all state of the art at one time, but there's a fire suppression system. There's the doors to the cells. And the parts aren't even made for much of that. So my way of thinking, and one of my priorities, and I don't know as though we've determined this, is to take care of the needs out there. I mean, we don't want it to crumble. It's in very bad shape. And what should have or could have been done, some preventive things were done, but again, you never have enough money to do it all. But it is at the point now where it has to be taken care of. And those are the type of things that have to have full attention, and that's going to cost a lot of money. Yes.
The number of increased units or beds, doesn't seem like with the problem we have, enough to take care of even that. And built on, will that be enough?
Why don't you make it 134?
Based on what I have viewed in the past 3 years, and I've been doing this a long time, I was shocked at the numbers, the increase particularly in female offenders who are committing crimes to feed an addiction. I think the judges would echo that as well if they were in the room. That seems to be the immediate problem and the immediate need. And I could not sit here and predict where that's going to go in the next couple to 3 years. I think that the space provided could get us by perhaps 5 years. I would love to see that number begin to decline. I'd love to empty that jail out. But in reality, that's not going to happen.
Does anyone have any questions, any comments? If not, sincerely, we all want to, yes,
I'm sorry,
That's
Mr.
right.
Barbara Till from Canton again. I do have one other question. It kind of goes towards the review monitoring board you talked about that was in the most recent newspaper article that's to be appointed. Will there be an accounting
Yes.
overview, specifically how each of the money was spent? Because this is
Yes.
going into the general fund, and that can be used for anything.
We know that, and that's why we're taking the steps to have this committee, to make it public. Yes, there will be reports, and we'll be responsible to provide all the answers to all the questions. That money is not going to be squirreled away somewhere else. It would take
It's not going to go for new furniture at the courthouse.
No, you know what, it would take, let me tell you this, a judge can order anything they want. A judge can order anything they want. If they would order that, we would be hard pressed, or we would be residents at the jail. But I don't think any elected official would purport to do that or dare to do that. Not with what's going into this. Not with the.
Well, hopefully not.
No, hopefully not. It will not happen.
May I comment also?
Thanks.
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
I'd like to add to that, to say that we are having a special line item for the receipts of this revenue from the tax. And then also there will be an opportunity to see how that money is expended. And we plan for it to be on the internet so that any citizen can look at it at any time. So it will be earmarked by us.
The Board of Commissioners are the appropriating authority. The buck stops and starts here. I'm never going to vote for one of those dollars to go for any other purpose than what it's designed to do.
Thank you for your passion.
Right. Now, again, if a judge orders it and says that money will be spent for this,
then you get screwed over.
Well,
Well,
no, it wouldn't necessarily come from this tax increase
No,
because that
that's
would be
true.
earmarked. What would happen if the judge ordered it come from the rest of the general fund money
Right.
instead?
well, but it's all pooled, you're right.
Is it going to be in a jail cell?
Yeah. You know, again, I don't think with the fact that the judges came here and pled with us to impose this tax, they better not ever even suggest that.
Thank you.
It's just my, whatever.
Thank you.
Again, thank you all for attending. Thank you for your diligence. Thank you for your very heartfelt sentiments, concerns. We'll consider the public hearing officially closed. Certainly, if you have any questions or any comments, anything you'd like from us, please just ask. We have a 1 o'clock, I don't know if we should have take a break. Thank you. It's my problem with Bill. and I can understand that, but I think there are problems. And I would think collectively.
As far as this last thing, though, I do think we need, you said you had proof. I do think we need something to say, this is what you're not doing, or, I mean, with those sheets, I mean,
Well, I
just
think-
ask him, just ask him.
All right.
Okay, I move to approve the journal entries.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anything else to come before us? No?
Okay, I move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we better sign things. Huh?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of signing, this is an emergency for Mickey. It's just one book each.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, it's